Ruler School is brought to you by Happy Little Hug Factory and these amazing patrons. Extra special thank you to guest lecturer patrons Brody Harris and Lance Albertson. Thank you for your support. Enjoy the video. Hey there everyone, DMO73 here, bringing you the deck list for the Scarlet Spellslinger deck that you saw me play earlier this week. This list was based off of a list that was sent to me by Benjamin Bargetzi a while ago before Winds of the Ominous Moon was released. So I went ahead and updated it because I think it's definitely a very unique and fun way to play Dusk Girl that I think has pretty decent potential to be a solid kind of control deck. Not in your typical sense because it doesn't have like cancels and stuff, but just in the sense of it's very hard for your opponent to be able to stick damage against you, and you can make the game go long, and at that point you have a very solid bomb for the end of the game just to finish it out all in one fell swoop. So obviously, the front side is Judgment for 1 darkness. Play this ability only if you have no cards in your hand. You're rarely ever going to do Judgment unless it's absolutely like a last chance kind of thing. This deck does really well at keeping cards in hand, keeping advantage up, and not really needing to worry about flipping. Energize for red and black, and then for red you can discard a card to deal 500 damage to a target resonator and deal 700 damage instead if you discard a dinosaur. So I will note in advance that one of the things this deck does struggle against is naturally J-Ruler decks, because we're not really playing a lot of J-Ruler hate. That's definitely something that you could make use of in the sideboard, would be spells to be able to deal with J-Rulers a little bit better. Going into the stone lineup first, we play 4 Scorched Bales, 4 Hearthcore, and 2 Ebon Home. This is a change from what you saw on Wednesday. I wanted a little bit more red than I was seeing, so I just made all 10 sources red. Just because we really want to make use of that front effect as much as possible, and sometimes it gets to these weird situations. And 6 Darkness Sources is usually enough for all that we need. Going into the main stone deck, or the main deck, Charlotte's Protector, 4 of. This is essentially a Thunder, but it's great because it cycles itself. Rarely ever going to cast it as a creature. Double blue is really worthless, essentially. But you're going to discard it to Dusk Girl, burn something, and then immediately cycle it into another card, which is great. 2 Prokaryotic Being as a backup win condition. You're throwing a lot of spells into the graveyard of this deck, and as you can see, it only has a grand total of 13 creatures in the entire list. So Prokaryotic Being gets huge. It's very easy to have a 22-22, 24-24. It's very easy to even get a 40-40 Prokaryotic Being and just kill your opponent all in one fell swoop, especially since you can give it swiftness and flying, and by that point in time you've got so much will it doesn't really matter. For Dino Rider, we played this over Mosasaurus as a dinosaur because it's grabbable with Reunion between Master and Pupil, so we want to be able to make sure we're getting 2 cards off of that as much as possible, so we chose a red dino instead of a blue dino, and sometimes you might want to cast it, I guess, just if you want to get that 14 damage in, but ultimately it's mainly just used as a burn spell. Also, the Archmage of Fire, one of our big combo pieces. He is great for being able to copy all of those spells, copying things like World Flame Summoning, or Reunion between Master and Pupil, or Ancient Impact. It's really great within Reunion, right? Because you can then copy it and you can grab 4 cards for 2 will, so you just refill your hand very quickly. He is harder to keep protected, obviously, in this list because we're not playing as much cancels, but if you're doing a good job, you know, if you're playing at locals and stuff too, it's not like he's going to be killed a lot, because you're also going to be playing things like the Thought Controls and the Glints of Insights to keep your opponent's hand to a minimum, so that you can really just kind of stay ahead. 4 Charlotte's Water Transformation Magic, because this card is essentially stoning to death, and I really like it in that sense. So essentially what this means is you can pitch it with for 1 red with Scarlet to burn something for 5, and then cast it from the grave with its Remnant ability to make it a 4/4 bear, but that 4/4 bear has taken 5 damage, so it's immediately killed. So it's really nice, especially since it kind of goes around the curve of the like upkeep, right? So if you only have like red available during the upkeep, you can pitch it for 1, recover, and then spend 1 and cast it. And so you're kind of like getting the same value out of a stoning to death, right? Spending 2 will to kill something, but at the same time, it's great because you only had to really spend 1 will, and so it's cheaper, and so you can kind of stay more of advantage. 3 Thought Control and 3 Glint of Insight to help keep our opponent's hand to 0 cards as much as possible. 2 Final Battles, just in case the game goes wide, so you can keep the board clear, as well as a potential J-Ruler answer. 3 Null Darkness for some hard kills, as well as potentially a J-Ruler kill, but again, we're probably never going to have 0 cards in our hands. Reunion between Master and Pupil as a big draw power and consistency boost. 2 World Flame Summonings, this is also some J-Ruler hate, being able to do 15 damage to target J-Ruler, and as well as wiping the board. You're really not going to use the Sacrificing Stone option, because you just don't have a way to cast it effectively that early. But usually you can like cast this with a Welser on board, and suddenly you just completely wiped their board, and you burned them for 16. So keep in mind here, though, that the copies can't pick new modes off of Welser, so you have to just pick the same modes for both versions. Valentina's Reach as a way to potentially refill our hand, or just tell our opponent that we're done with them having a hand completely. 3 Ancient Impact, because it is the main kind of win con, it's uncancelable, which is great. And so if you have Welser in the field, right? So Welser's out, you cast Ancient Impact, Welser effects triggers. If Welser's effect resolves, then you get a second Ancient Impact on the chase, which means there's 2 uncancelable 20 damage burn spells, so your opponent just takes 40 damage and the game's over. So they have to cancel Welser's ability to copy it, or they just lose the game immediately as soon as you cast the Ancient Impact, which is awesome. And then lastly, just to fill in some space, a couple of Severing Winds, just to kind of help prevent win some cancel wars, or make sure that you can keep your combo protected. You can't really hard cast it because we have no green sources, but we threw it in there because this is kind of a list that wants to protect its combo, so having a couple Severing Winds can be pretty helpful in that regard. So there you have it, guys. That is the list. Huge thanks to Benjamin Bargetzi for sending me the original list, and I hope I did him proud with this kind of update. Let me know what you guys think of this style of Dusk Girl, or if you would try it at your locals. And until next time, this is DMO73 signing off.